listeners, hello and welcome to Homo Sapiens. What a delight it is to be with you, to be beaming into your ears. I have got a new member of the Homo Sapiens family with me today, Roxy Boudillon, or Bourdillon, we've just been discussing that, editor of Diva magazine, famed author, has joined us here today. Hello, Roxy. Thank you for coming on board.
Hello, Chris. Hello, listeners. I am so excited to be on Homo Sapiens. Honestly, not just saying it, one of my top podcasts.
Oh, thanks. Well, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled you said yes when we asked you. We sort of had a little chat a couple of months ago, didn't we? And here we are. You know, I'll be blunt. I always think this podcast has underserved the lesbian community. And I think hopefully this will be part of remedying that. And I think sometimes I get myself in a bit of a knot in the sense that sometimes I don't want to speak on behalf of other members of the community. So sometimes it just sways in my direction and then I struggle with that. Then I overthink it. So Roxy and I were talking, everyone. We were talking about doing, what should we do? And Roxy was like, why don't we do U-Haul Lesbians? And then I was like, oh yeah, why don't we do U-Haul Lesbians versus You Can Go Gays? Because the data, it sort of seems to sum up the difference between, does it sum up the difference between gay and lesbian dating? That's what we're here to discuss, right?
That's it, exactly. Does it or doesn't it? Certainly like the stereotype, if you're looking at queer women dating and queer men dating, there's definitely that dichotomy. But we're going to dig into whether or not that's the truth.
Yeah, and you've all been writing in and all the rest of it. So thank you, listeners. And I suppose, why don't we kick off with the definition of U-Haul lesbians first, for anyone who doesn't know? Roxy.
Okay, so I'm going to explain the definition with the oldest lesbian joke in history, which is, what does a lesbian bring to a second date? A U-Haul, or if you're not familiar with U-Hauls, a moving van, or if you want to kind of evolve your joke further, a turkey baster. You know, we can take this as far as you want to go. But yeah, that's the old joke about lesbians. And the idea is that we move at some kind of super sapphic turbo speed. Like we meet someone that we're really into and we have a lot of lesbian feelings and they have a lot of lesbian feelings and it all gets out of hand. And before you know it, you've shacked up and you've got a new wife.
And do you relate to that yourself?
Yes. Yeah, I very much relate to the concept of the U-Haul lesbian. I think there's a lot of stereotypes about lesbians, and some of them I feel I really embody with all my lesbian soul. And then some of them I am just boldly defying. But the U-Haul lesbian thing, I think every one of my long-term lesbian relationships has started from a U-Haul place in some shape or form. But then, Chris, I'm not like, it depends on the other person, because I won't U-Haul with just anyone. I'm quite picky about who I U-Haul with.
I will U-Haul with you, but not you.
Yes, exactly.
When people say this moving in thing, is that to do with, do you love how I'm talking like I've never met a lesbian? Because I was actually talking to my lesbian friends before this, and actually they were all like, yup. So what's, does that mean that it ends quickly or they stay together for a long time as well?
Okay, well, I'm honoured to be your guide to all things lesbian. I'm a professional lesbian. I'm very happy to les off to your heart's content. Let me tell you my honest professional lesbian opinion. So it depends on who you're U-hauling with. This is why, and this is my advice to anyone listening. Absolutely. If your heart is saying, oh, she's lovely, she's fabulous, I want to be with her all the time, I want to U-haul with her, go for it. But if not, maybe leave the U-hauling. But I don't think it always means quick start means quick end. So me and my lovely partner, we, in a sense, we U-hauled. Like our first ever date lasted for like 24 hours, which is pretty standard in the queer women world for some people. And we were exclusive after the first date, and we're still together, like, it'll be 11 years in February. So U-hauling can work out.
So what I wonder when I hear that is it that it's so, well, I'll clarify. Some people, whether they should be cancelled or not, have called me a lesbian because I'm not that into the kind of hookup culture thing. I never was. I always just fell in love with people, you know, like, and I was an old romantic in that sense. And so people were like, oh my God. And a hookup culture is so back with a vengeance in gay male culture. That it's, you know, it sort of feels further alienating for me. And I know lots of listeners write in and say they feel the same. So it's not, I ain't alone here. But is it to do with there is a lack of hookup culture in lesbian dating, and therefore people are looking for long-term relationships? Whereas if you try and get someone to find a long-term relationship as a gay man, that makes you a rare beast.
Well, I think it's lovely that you were just looking for someone to settle down with. I love that. I think that's gorgeous and delightful. I think, do you know what? I think lesbian hookup culture does exist. Like I said, my long-term relationships, they've all been U-hauls, but in between the long-term relationships, I was what I like to think of as my wild, free, single, sapphic youth. You know, I was having a time of it, and I wasn't committing. I was meeting lovely ladies. We were all having lovely fun. So I think you can find that. And where did I find that? Usually if I was in like lesbian bars and things. I'm talking as if I'm an old timer on the scene who's had all sorts of shenanigans. To clarify, what I think of as my wild sapphic youth, it was about 5 women over 2 years. But for me, that was racing. That was so racing.
Yeah.
I think it does exist, but I also think, and I know it's a stereotype, but I think there's truth to it. I think for a lot of lesbians, a lot of queer women and non-binary people, it's like we've just got so many feelings, and it's just so intense and exciting when you meet someone who you get that connection with. And then, you know, of course, if you found someone and you want to just be together all the time, you want to talk about all your past traumas and all your excitements about the feelings you've got for each other, and you want to be shagging all the time, that stuff's a lot easier if you just, you know, live in the same place. We're practical people, Chris. It's a logistical thing.
Yes. But you know what? The difference between that and so and gay men, from my experience, is you do get that 24-hour date, but then they ghost you. You know, like you do, and you get the 72-hour situation where they're like, oh my God, where will we live? What will we call our children? And then they disappear. And I think there is this kind of thing in male gay culture where it's constantly trying to upgrade.
Right.
And everyone is looking for something better. And I don't know the atmosphere of all gay male parties and stuff is like very much, in my opinion, you know, before anyone comes to me, everyone's kind of looking around, looking for the upgrade. And I contain that personality trait as well. But I also worked out that while I don't always act on it, it really is not a good place for me to sit. If I'm in that space, I'm like, oh, you're not happy. You know? But do you think there is a lack of that in queer female spaces?
No, I think that happens for queer female spaces as well. I think what happens, again, in my own experience, all lesbians are different. Lesbians are people too. You're all beautiful, nuanced, unique individuals with your own life perspectives and intricate neuroses and joys and everything. So I'm not speaking for you necessarily. In my own personal...
I love how we both do that. It's like terms and conditions apply.
Exactly, because lesbians are opinionated. Lovely, lovely opinions. In my own experience, I think that thing of like scanning the room and seeing who else is there and is there anyone else, you know, that might tickle your fancy. I feel like if you go to lesbian bars sometimes, there's that vibe of everyone's eyes are on everyone. And I never quite know whether it's that people are checking each other out or people are like almost sizing each other up, like it can feel quite territorial sometimes, or like, oh, there's a new person in the space, let's see how this plays out. But you know, I mean, maybe this is why the lesbians are U-hauling, because we don't necessarily, we're just hanging out at home watching the L Word with the cats and cuddling, so that we're not in the lesbian spaces where people are trying to upgrade. But again, just a theory. Not necessarily the case.
Just a theory. We say all these things to provoke a discussion, not to give answers, right? We're not looking for the answer. We're just looking for the questions. That's what I always like to say. Well, shall we have a little look at our questions that we sent out to you beautiful listeners?
Okay, so our first question that we asked was, Q for our lesbians, moving in after a few dates is too fast or very much my speed? And 55% said too fast, but 45% are all down for a U-haul, and they said it is absolutely how they like to roll.
Interesting. So it's not the majority then, according to this, according to our data set. But this was shared across Diva's socials, Roxy's socials. So we got a broad spectrum. It's not a majority. I think that's very interesting, because what I hear, am I dumb, or is this U-haul thing been quite recent, or has it been around forever?
So the U-haul thing's been I'm sounding dumb. The U-haul thing has been around for a long time. Like the U-haul joke has been going for a long old time, but there is kind of more discussion about it, I'd say, in recent times, and people are talking about it again. And it's so interesting. So it was 55% thought moving in after a few dates is too fast. 45% thought very much my speed. We did, because people are talking about the U-haul thing, our next issue of Diva magazine for February, March is the U-haul issue. Queer love is resistance, queer love is liberation, queer love is worth fighting for. And it's kind of political, like making space to celebrate our diverse, beautiful love, but also it's a bit of fun. And we did a big Diva dating survey, and in our findings, over 70% were like, yes, the U-haul thing definitely exists, but that didn't necessarily mean they all wanted to do it. But they all were like, yeah, it's very much a thing that they've encountered.
Interesting. And is there a sort of opening up of relationships happening in lesbianism that there is happening in gay relationships, gay male relationships?
Yeah, we had a whole bit about polyamory, actually, and that was really interesting. And it kind of showed that quite a lot of the Diva readers had tried it or were trying it, and were kind of sharing their experiences on that. I think that we are seeing a bit more of that among queer women and gender diverse spaces as well. I know, like, from my gay guy friends, that a lot of them have been embracing polyamory for quite a long time.
Yeah, I mean, they're all small worlds, aren't they? It's a small world, so you end up just everyone's fucking into each other. It's quite intense. There's a lot of people having a lot of sex with a lot of the same people. Roxy, let's have a look at the next question. We asked our lesbians, have you ever dated someone who already knew your ex? I did the questions, and we gave the option of impossible not to or heck yes, which this morning I realized is actually both the same answer.
Are you leading the witness, Chris?
I know, I was like, oh no, that means the same thing. Anyway, but 43% of you, so everyone who answered said, yes, they have dated someone who they already knew your ex. It's still interesting because 43 people said it's impossible not to do that. What do you react to that?
Oh God, it's my worst nightmare. I know that it's the lived experience of lots of people, but I cannot imagine anything worse than going out with someone who had, and having like this big tree of entangled exes. I know this is how a lot of queer people live. It's how a lot of my friends live. But personally, if my lesbian relationship ends, I like to, leave town, find a new place to live, find a new bunch of people. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm personally, it's not something I've ever embraced, the whole thing of staying friends with your exes. Although if any exes are listening to this, I wish you well and hope you're having a gorgeous, lovely life, my love. Thank you for what we shared. I wish you nothing but good things, but
Yeah.
I don't want you to go out.
Don't call me.
Yeah, don't. Well, indeed. But that's just my personal.
Never darken my thoughts.
It was lovely. Let's leave it in the past. But I do know that for loads of people, as the poll results show, yeah, it's like they can't avoid not kind of dating people who've been involved with exes and so on. And I do remember, like, when I was back in the day when I was single, and walking into a lesbian bar, and that thing of when you have a dating app on your phone that shows how close people are, and you're like, oh fuck, everyone in this space who I've been chatting to is suddenly there. And it just sort of shows you how intense and small our community, or not our community, but intense and small kind of the spaces between us and the spaces we exist in can be.
Yeah. So, and is that because we are consistently underserving the lesbian community with spaces? Like, how many bars are there left for queer women?
Do you know what? That's such a good question. So if you look at, and I've done some research on this, I have dug into this, and if you look at the kind of the statistics on it over the years, gay bars across the board have declined. Lesbian bars in particular have declined. But what we found recently, which is really joyous and exciting, is there's been a new wave of lesbian nights especially, but also like more permanent venues like the Camionera and places like that, which is super cool.
In London.
Yeah, which is super cool. So actually, although there is a sort of story that we're told and that we tell each other, and that does have some truth to it about lesbian spaces sort of getting smaller and smaller, what's gorgeous is the community's finding new ways to reinvent the nightlife and to create the spaces they want to be in. So that's quite good.
That's great. Yeah. And La Camionera we spoke about before, actually. I think it was one of my community message boards thing. And do you, so there's also that night Pussy Palace, right?
Yeah.
Which is very queer, non-binary, trans women. It's open to everybody, but it's very much there's a breadth to it, which I love. And then of course, queer spaces, like I'm thinking about like Feel It, for example, they are open to queer women. But do you think it's important, and do the community think it's important to have lesbian spaces?
Yes, I think so. But in terms of all the lesbians and the queer women and gender diverse people that I know and the readers that I speak to, I think it's important to have lesbian spaces, but ones that are inclusive. Like, we don't want to be going to a transphobic lesbian bar. That's not good. We definitely don't want to be giving them our custom. But I think there is something, like historically in the community, that feeling of if you've got a mixed gay space, inevitably, most of the time, it would end up that there were more guys there than the girls. So I think there's a feeling of wanting to have your own spaces. Personally, I like to be able to go to an inclusive lesbian space, but also to go to the mixed stuff. Like I like to be able to go, dip my toe in all sorts of pools. But I think that there is definitely that feeling, and certainly the feeling I get from the readers of Diva magazine is that they would like more dedicated spaces.
Do we also think, when you're saying that, I was wondering if it's, queer spaces, but then it inevitably is more men, but then the gays tend to bring their girls along, but, lesbians don't tend to bring their boys along, do they? So then it kind of swings the mix even further. Yeah. Like lesbians are just being outnumbered all the time.
That's welcome to my life, Chris. Just the only really? Lesbian. No, actually, I'm surrounded by lesbians constantly. I've made a career out of this shit. This lovely lesbian way. Yes, you do sometimes feel outnumbered, but then it's like when you do find a space or a community or a group or whatever it is, where you feel like, oh no, I feel really good here. This is really nice. And I feel like these are you know, this is a great space with great people I want to be with, who I can relate to because we share this identity, then it's really powerful and gorgeous, and you sort of cherish that, which is really special.
Presumably a high turnover of people in them, because people go in there once, get a girlfriend and leave, never come back.
Well, this is the thing though, Chris, because we're very upset about them closing lesbian spaces, rightly so. We absolutely should be upset about that. And then there's a tiny little whispering voice that's saying, oh shit, have we done this to ourselves? Because we've gone to the space once, we've met the love of our lives for however long that lasts, and we've gone home, we've put on, you know, the L Word or whatever it is we're watching, and we're never going back there again. We don't want someone else taking our girl, you know?
Yeah, it's funny because I do the same with the cinema, because, you know, everyone's like, oh, cinema's dying. We, you know, don't close cinemas. I'm like, when was the last time you went to cinema? And everyone's like, January last year. You know, like, people aren't going, and you've got to use these spaces, haven't you?
You've got to.
Roxy, tell me a few of your favorite places.
My favorite places.
There are any.
Yeah. So in terms of like queer spaces, I would say that La Camionera is great. I'd say that I love, like I was talking about, all these gorgeous dyke nights that have popped up. And there's also some longer running dyke nights, places like Butch Please or Gal Pals, which are just gorgeous. And they've been going for, I think, over 10 years apiece, those two. And those two I really, really rate. And I feel like they just have a really gorgeous, sexy, cool, but also welcoming vibe that I really like, and a really, really nice mix of people.
Magic. Okay, well, that's good to know.
Okay, so our next one, ever got emotionally close before anything physical? 67% said yes, which I thought was quite high.
Yeah.
That was quite high.
Well, as a gay man, I literally was like, Roxy's going to have to explain this to me. Well, people are just getting really intense, but not going near each other.
Well, not me.
That's a relationship.
Not me, Chris. Like, when I was talking about both my U-Haul experiences and my wild time, never waited to get emotionally close before having anything physical. You know, if I fancied someone, that was lovely. But I do think maybe, and this is a theory, my theory is maybe for a lot of queer women and gender diverse folks, maybe they do get emotionally close before getting physical, and perhaps it's tied to the ancient art of lesbian yearning. Like, we are really, really into pining and yearning. We absolutely love it. Like Sappho in ancient Greece, you know, she built her career on it, with all her poems pining for her lovers. K.D. Lang, famous butch lesbian singer, in the 90s, her biggest hit, Constant Craving. Like, we just can't get enough of that kind of exquisitely painful yet delicious yearning for someone else.
Yeah.
So I wonder, this is my theory, maybe these 67% who got emotionally close before anything physical, they were living in that yearning space, and they were loving all the yearning before they got down to business.
Are you a yearner yourself?
No, I think if she fancies me and I fancy her, let's have a lovely time. And then, not personally, am I a yearner? What I'm not into, which some people are and some people aren't, I'm not into sort of games or people trying to play it cool. Like, if a woman tried to play it cool with me, I'd think, that is so boring of you. Please stop that. I don't have time for this. But I do understand that a lot of people love that. Like, it's kind of a big archetype in lesbian and queer women's dating, the whole Shane from the L Word thing, that whole like unavailable, aloof, sexy player with some commitment issues or someone who just doesn't want to be tied down. A lot of lesbians fucking live for that. I'm like, no, get me a U-hauler. I don't need to feel any more insecure.
I think I'm a lesbian. I am such a yearner, and those people you just described, that person, I'm like, catnip to me. I'm also like, I know it's not right. No, it's not right. I know it's not right. You know what I mean? I'll say, someone ignores me, catnip. But that's also to do with, do you know that attachment style thing? Anxious attachment and avoidant attachment. And apparently it's something that is created in childhood. And anxious attachment is like, you like to chase You feel like you're going to be abandoned all the time. And avoidant attachment is like you switch off, and often couples are paired like that. I am so anxious attachment, it's ridiculous. And my husband, I would say, is avoidant attachment. And I think I was trying to, when you were talking about playing games, I never really played games, but I did play games with my husband because I thought he wasn't that interested. So I broke up with him when we first were together. And he was so upset. And I was like, what? That was a really silly thing to do.
Like as a tactical move, you broke up with him.
Yeah. I was such a dickhead. I was overthinking it.
Oh, but the problem is, Chris, that you've ended up happily ever after. So you're very much, maybe playing games is a freaking great idea. But,
I think do you know what? I actually think I had him wrong.
Right.
Like I'd been given a funny impression of him, not a funny impression. People had said he was a player, and actually I don't think he was. So I was trying to like play the player, massively overthinking it, drinking too much.
Yeah.
In chaos. So as soon as I did it, I was like, this was the wrong. He looked so sad, poor thing.
Oh, bless
I was like, oh, fuck. So yeah, I think, but I do, it's so funny when you talk about, I've never done the link between K.D. Lang and Constant Craving and Yearning. And I'd never really thought that's what that song is about. But what a worldwide smash hit song. Anyone who hasn't heard it, look it up. We'll put it on repeat, I promise. And what sparkled in my mind as you were talking about that, and it's something I suppose to do with what we're talking about in terms of lesbian dating, is, do you think, or is this a leap? There's a little bit of misogyny in the idea of lesbian yearning, because I think gay men yearn just as much, but it's considered weak to yearn. You know what I mean? There's something, and it sort of gets up my nose when I hear that thing of lesbians and yearning, and it's like, oh, because I remember someone saying to me about Call Me By Your Name, for example. That is a movie about yearning. It's male yearning, but and someone said all gay love stories are essentially about yearning, and gay male love stories. And it's funny that label gets slapped on lesbians, but not gay men.
That is such a good and interesting point. I think maybe you're right. I haven't really thought of it in that context before, but I think you're right, because let's face it, we're queer. We've got a lot of feelings, all of us. And absolutely, of course, so many of our stories are about yearning. And I said before, I'm not a yearner, but actually, like, if I look back through my life, certainly when I was younger, and getting to grips with things, and then you've got so much inner turmoil about everything, as well as the sexual or romantic attraction or whatever it is. Oh, I've done my fair share of yearning. But I think you're right. I don't think it is just women who yearn. Of course it's not. You're right. So there may well be some misogyny there, like the fact that it's getting slapped as a proper stereotype on the lesbians. Yeah.
And also, we're talking about forbidden love, aren't we? For a lot of people, forbidden love creates yearning because you're not allowed to do it. So you want each other, but you can't be together, which is the root of every great rom-com ever. I love a bit of yearning.
Yeah.
Lord alive. Longing for someone is great fun.
Yeah, it is. It's delicious.
And actually, I even think I've been married to my husband for 10 years. And but we both travel a lot with work. So it's like we long for each other when we're apart. I love that bit. It's so nice being back together. And I think that's great. There's nothing wrong with it.
I completely agree with you. And I've been with my partner for, like I said, 11 years. And to be honest, I still yearn for her. Like, she goes out to work, I work at home. And I think, oh no, when's baby coming back? I absolutely yearn, but yearning, stuff of life, isn't it?
Should we have a look at the next one?
Yeah.
Lesbian breakups.
Oh.
Are they more intense than straight ones? 93% of you said hell yeah. Roxy, if you may, unpack that for me.
I am not shocked by this. I am not shocked at all. I have known many a messy lesbian breakup, an emotional lesbian breakup, not necessarily in my own personal life, but many other lesbian relationships. And when they fall apart, they do so in spectacular fashion. For me, in terms of my own experience with breakups, it's hard to say like that it's just a lesbian thing, because I think breakups are just shit and painful and agony. And like, particularly if you were really deeply in love with that person and then it didn't work out, and maybe the love didn't even go away, maybe there were other issues there, like that is brutal. And I wouldn't want to say that because I'm a lesbian it hurts me more than someone else. that doesn't feel very that doesn't feel quite right. But I do
tell HR you get extra on holiday.
Oh my god, well, I mean, we should do that at Diva, shouldn't we, really? But that's a great idea. But I think there is something like specific, and I don't know if it's just lesbians or if it's like queer people in general, but because when you find someone who you believe to be your person, I'm talking about like those kind of romantic long-term relationships where you fall in love, you believe this is your person. If you're a queer person who perhaps has a history of feeling unlovable or not kind of not valid or affirmed in your identity, or if your family weren't great about you being queer or whatever it is, there's something in those relationships that at the time feels so healing and so beautiful and so sort of like, wow, we've invented our own way of loving and being, and we've got this gorgeous, close, intimate, emotional, sexy, romantic connection, and you're my best friend, and this is fantastic, and I love this, and I haven't had this before. And then when that goes, you're grieving for the loss of this person who meant so much to you, but also perhaps part of what you're grieving for is like, oh shit, I'm back to feeling like this again, because it's so precious, that feeling, because perhaps you haven't had it in other parts of your life.
God, yeah, such a good point, isn't it? And I think it's like my first big relationship was like, we literally just like slammed the door on the entire world.
Yeah.
And were sort of just together and felt seen, and it was incredible. And so you feel like you found an island on which you can be yourself and reveal yourself for the first time and all this stuff, and you find all these things in common. It's an amazing feeling. And I wonder if that is just not necessarily always part and parcel of a straight relationship. It can be, but you know, it's maybe that's why the comparison just, is it more than straight people, comes out at 97%, because we're not revealing ourselves. We are revealing ourselves as queer people when we get together for the first time. Because no matter what, well, what do you think? But no matter what, I think even in today's world where it's all fine, we are, you know, allegedly all fine, we are still policing ourselves in our manner, because if you look online, everything has become, I think everything's become hyper masculine and hyper feminine. And so the gender non-conformity bit, I think, is probably worse than when I was younger, actually. You know, like if you think about who are the big people out there right now, Harry Styles aside, everyone is very of their gender. You know, their assigned gender, you might say. I don't know. I'm sort of thinking out loud. I could be wrong. Write in hello@homosapienspodcast.com. But how do you react to that, Roxy?
I think it's true that it feels like all sorts of rigid ideas about how we should, in inverted commas, be, and how we should look and how we should behave and how we should express ourselves and all of that. It feels like that is getting much more rigid to me. It feels like we had a time that felt more open and more kind of embracing difference and things like that. And then now it feels like we're very much facing a backlash to that. And, you know, the rise of transphobia and the rise of homophobia and all that stuff. And I think that thing we were talking about, and when you described it perfectly, Chris, as like, it's like you've got your own island. I think that if you're a queer person living in the world today, and perhaps when you leave your home and you're out there in the world, you know, perhaps you don't feel that safe. And even just speaking for myself, and I'm privileged because I'm a cis woman, but as a cis lesbian woman walking through the world, I don't feel empowered to express my truest self and hold my partner's hand and kiss her in the streets. You know, I wouldn't do any of that. I would not feel safe to do it. And then if you're trans, or if you've got other marginalized identities, there's all sorts of other aspects that come into that as well. And I think that if you're living in a way where when you leave your front door, you feel like it's perhaps not safe, or at least not safe to fully express yourself, when you shut that door and perhaps you're with another person, then it's like you can exhale, like it's a breath out, like it's like, oh, thank God, I can be myself. And I think that, I think that's really interesting, because I think you are right about things getting more rigid.
I also wonder if there's something linking the last two questions we asked listeners, which is that, you know, I sort of took the piss about like, what the hell would it be to be emotionally connected to someone before it got physical? But if you're trans, for example, and you're revealing yourself to somebody, and you know, I was talking to Sean Vey about this on a few episodes ago, you know, like how you need to, you know, she's sort of said she doesn't really want to date straight men anymore, because it just ends up being, she'd rather date a bi person or a queer person, because there's so little understanding. And there's also the whole thing about, you know, chasers and guys who just like people because they're trans, and you've basically got loads of other stuff to work through to check the connection. And that's probably worthwhile doing before you hop into bed, right? So there's probably a bit of that in it, and so that's on the way into a relationship, and then on the way out, therefore there is quite a bit more untangling to do, perhaps, because you've only been yourself with that person, and that's major. And you did your survey, which touched on dating and stuff. What else did you uncover in it?
So the Diva dating survey, we found out some very juicy and interesting things about our lovely Diva readers. One of them was about like whether or not people think that stereotypes about lesbians are fact or fiction. Okay. So one of the ones I found interesting was being friends with all our exes. 48% thought that was fact, and 52% thought that was fiction, which says to me that perhaps half of us are still friends with all of our exes. And I get like maybe being friends with one of them, but all of them, jeepers creepers.
I have friends with one of my exes. I mean, I don't have tons, but yeah, I think all of them says something more. You know what I mean? Because surely you've got to shuffle through and choose some for the yes pile and some for the no pile.
Well, this is it. And then if we look at what we've just said about the poll results about how painful the breakups are, that's pretty impressive. If people are then navigating after enduring that profound pain and managing to stay friends, I mean, fabulous.
Well, if they know they're going to see them every weekend at their mates for brunch, that's what it is. You've really got to work out, how are we going to get along? So we've got to go to Wendy's on Thursday.
That is a really good point. So they've got to.
Whereas the gays do this thing, which I find really interesting, which is like, so one of the reasons I never went to sauna is that I always recognize people wherever I go. If I've met someone once, I often remember them. I can't say I always do. But I just remember people's faces. That's how my memory works. And I can see someone I recognize from like 200 feet away. I just can. So I was always like, if I go to a sauna, I'll fucking know you, because I can be anywhere in the world and I will see someone I know. Yeah. Like, I'm not joking. I was on a plane the other day. I saw someone I knew. Like, I didn't know him. I was like, how do I know that guy? And I did know him. But anyway, so I was like, I'm not going to go to a sauna. I'll know someone. I find that really intense. But now when I talk to my queer friends who obviously, you know, love going to the same parties and having sex with small groups of people, let's say, you just blank each other if you do. So I can't do that. I just can't, like, it's why I couldn't ever act. It's like, I can't pretend I'm thinking something else. You know what I mean? It makes me sound like I'm trying to be like, I'm such a saint, but I'm not. It's just that specific thing I can't do.
I love that there's like sauna etiquette. I love that there's like unspoken rules beyond the sauna of how we conduct ourselves if we've seen each other in the sauna. That's amazing.
Yeah, and there is a bit of a tacit, you know, I remember going for an HIV test once and bumping into someone who I worked with,
right,
who was much senior to me.
Ooh. And
there was a sort of tacit, like, let's not, you know, hi, you know, just hi, but let's not talk about this. And I kind of love that kind of mutual respect and whatever that would be, clubbiness of it. because we are, I suppose we're all living on the margins together, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense. And it's a mutual understanding, isn't it? It's an understanding of what it meant in that space, or what this thing is that you're experiencing, whether it's an HIV test or whether you're in the sauna. And then now we're in a different environment. So it's a different set of social rules there. Yeah, that's super interesting.
And looking back across these questions and all the stuff that we've covered, we started this conversation with, it was like, U-Haul is lesbian dating, You Can Go is gay dating. I feel like we have not got, we've only just touched on stuff, but like, I feel like so many of the traits of U-Haul actually exist in queer male dating as well. Do you, because we haven't spoken tons about it, but like that kind of hookup culture, do we see that with lesbians as well? Are they on the apps all the time? Is that a thing?
I think that it depends very much on the individual person, of course. I think that I'll speak about the kind of the diva readers who responded to our diva dating survey, and about kind of the queer women that I know in my own life. And I would say from those perspectives, it seems like it's less widespread than it might be among the gay guys, but it does still happen. Like there definitely are, there definitely are people like lesbians and queer women who enjoy hookup culture for sure. But I don't know that it's as much as it goes on with the guys.
Did you know in the old days, so the way, do queer women do this? So the way you would pick people up before there was apps and all that, you would walk past them and walk past the person. If you like the look of them, you didn't know anything about them, you could be out on the street. You'd look back once. If they looked back once, that was good news. But then you would look away and then look back twice. And if they did it a second time, that was like, okay, really good news. And then if you looked a third time, then that meant you could just walk towards each other and go, right, let's go find the toilet.
Oh my goodness. I knew about like flagging, and like you'd have like, different handkerchiefs or whatever it was to signal, and little queer signs that we all knew meant, I'm in the club. With the looking back thing, so I think I've definitely done that when I was single, but not necessarily to the extent of we look once, oh, this is interesting, look twice, oh, here we go, look 3 times, right, let's find somewhere where we can get to business. I haven't done that. But I have done and especially because I'm like a super femme lesbian who like most people don't necessarily read as queer. So because of that, I'm certainly guilty of overcompensating to really try and convince them that I'm a lesbian. So when I was single, I had quite a carry-on flirting style, which involved a lot of eye contact. And I'd certainly do the look over your shoulder 3 times thing, just to let them know. Because for me, it was like, look once, they might think, oh, that woman's looking at me. Look twice, they might think, why is she looking at me? Look 3 times and do something pouty or something ridiculous. And
you in danger, girl.
This is it. Then think, hang on a second, is she coming up to me? And
I love it.
And that worked for me.
Roxy, there are truths to all these things, but as ever, there's also a lot more common ground. And we are all a beautiful tapestry of different kinds of things, right? There's no one size fits all for all of us.
100%. And also, I feel like sometimes it's fun to think about like the stereotypes, or to explore the differences between queer guys and queer women. I think something else that struck me in this conversation is we actually have a lot in common, and there's a lot of overlap in terms of how we experience love or romance or dating. So I think there is some substance to some of the stereotypes, but I don't think it's so cut and dry. And you're right, a beautiful, rich queer tapestry.
Yeah, we have one U-Haul gay here and one hiccup monster lesbian. That's where we move. Yeah, hookup monster lesbian.
I'm going to go with it, but I'm a reformed hookup monster lesbian. I was a hookup monster lesbian, then I U-Hauled, and now I'm just, when's baby coming back? Constantly craving, just want to be all smushy and emotional again.
What a lovely journey. What a beautiful story arc you've had. Roxy, tell me 3 lesbian dating cliches.
I'd say one is that we U-Haul, and on the first date, we immediately move in together, and then you don't see us for dust. I'd say, because we're too busy hanging out with the cats and the L word, I'd say another lesbian dating cliche is that on our first date, we trauma dump. So on a first date, we will just share all of our past traumas in a way that perhaps in different circles may not be entirely appropriate, but in lesbian queer world, this is something that perhaps we're said to do. Our third lesbian dating cliche would be that we are friends with all our exes, can't move for exes, having dinner with them all tonight.
That's great. Roxy, shall we have a look at your selection for community message board? So community message board, listeners, is where we just mention something that we have seen that's a queer business or a cool, queer, friendly thing. Roxy, what's yours today?
My thing for today is I want to recommend Queer Girls Book Club, which is at Houseman's Books in London. And it's this gorgeous, inclusive book club for queer women, trans people, gender diverse folks. I went along because I've got a book, What a Girl Wants, A True Story of Sexuality and Self-Discovery, where you can
sitting behind you there,
just casually drop it in the shot there, where you can discover more of my wild adventures and lesbian yearnings. But I went along as a guest author to one of their sessions, and it was so gorgeous. And each time, each book club, they do a different queer book and they all read it and then come along and talk about it. And it's just like a really lovely thing to do if you want to find a queer activity that isn't necessarily like all about going to bars and clubbing.
Magic. And so is it on Instagram or somewhere? Can people follow it?
Yeah, 100%. It's on Instagram and I think it's like at Queer Girls Book Club, but if you just search that, it'll come up and it's really lovely.
My one is a book written by Damien Barr. Damien Barr, I would file under friend of the pod. He's a fellow author like you, Roxy. Do you know him? Do you know his work?
I've not met him, but I do know his work, yeah.
He's an author and he used to run something called, was it the Queer Literary Salon? Or I'm getting the name wrong, Damien, I'm sorry. But he has written a book. It's a big, gay, Scottish love story. So for anyone who loved things like Shuggie Bain, this is for you. It's called The Two Roberts. And they are a gay art duo. And it came out a couple of months ago. And he's also sort of in conjunction with it, he's curated a show about the two artists for Charleston in Lewis. And it's the first show in England since 1962 when their love was illegal. And I just thought that was such a wonderful thing. So look it up, listeners. There's an in-person element. There's a book you can get. More queer joy. What more could you ask for?
Gorgeous.
Roxy, this has been really wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I have had such a lovely time and possibly overshared, but all in the name of community and feeling seen, eh?
Yeah, and also I have a motto that if I embarrass myself, it allows other people to feel less embarrassed who are listening.
It is so selfless.
Well, it is. It's why the other week I was banging on about how much I fancy Tom Selleck. I was like, I'm sure everyone else thinks it too. So, and actually, every time you overshare, you always get an email going, thanks for saying that. I feel the same. And you feel better about yourself. Shame, I love this saying, shame withers in the light. Do you know that saying?
I do. And I also love this saying. And it is so true. Beautiful.
Listeners, I need to do some housekeeping in this moment. Write in with your opinions. Is Chris allowed to keep saying that he's a lesbian, for example? Probably not. So it's hello@homosapienspodcast.com, at homosapiens on Instagram. This season, we are supporting Not a Phase. If you would like to nominate someone you know, or you yourself would like some gender-affirming underwear, write in hello@homosapienspodcast.com. Let us know what you would like, and we will get it for you. We're going to start fundraising for that as well. Rate and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Share with your friends. And I think that's about it. Roxy, this has been wonderful. Thank Thank you so much. Listeners, thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to get in touch. And we'll see you later. Bye for now.
Bye. Bye for
Bye for now.
now.